Good morning. I know this is like a little random. It's like 6 a.m. But anyway, this is day two of going live for 21 days. 21 days. I, my dog's moving. So, I'm going to talk about the importance of finding your audience, right? Because I've just been seeing a lot of stuff, about how certain audiences don't support. And I just want to just talk about how important it is that you're finding your audience, right? So, if you are new here, you might not know, but I used to primarily focus on moms, parents that have lost their children. As a mom that has, gone through stillbirth, right? And I felt that I really needed to be able to connect with other moms. So, like, by, that definition, those parents, should have been my audience, right? Uh, because I had gone through something similar. Um, we were all grieving together and we were all trying to help one another. So, by that definition, they should have been my audience. Now, I talk to what I like to call them as angel moms. I talk to them, I want to say, nearly 4 years, right? So that was nearly like 4 years of getting on a podcast every Monday, um, and talking to them, giving them encouragement. I even had an app at one point where they were also getting encouragement every day. They were getting monthly devotionals, um, doing classes, a fast. And I was doing all of these things, but it wasn't connecting, right? It wasn't really connecting with them. And that's not to say that I didn't have some people, but it was very clear that there was a disconnect, right? There was a disconnect there. Um, but I didn't know where the disconnect was. But something where the message wasn't reaching them the way that it was intended. Um, and that doesn't mean that, they weren't supportive. It just means that they were not the right audience for me. It means that I may not have been the right, vehicle to deliver that kind of message to them, right? Um, and so you really want to focus on the importance of your audience, and taking a step back and realizing that there's a disconnect somewhere. Somewhere in your message, it's not hitting the people that you have intended it, you know, to reach, and that's okay, right? That's okay. That just means that we need to pivot. We need to pivot and find the audience for us, because I truly believe that there's an audience for everybody, um, and so that's what I did. I realized that the message was not, reaching them as intended. Um, there's plenty of other people, other podcasts, other apps, that do focus on that. Um, and so it wasn't like they didn't have, anywhere to go. But I realized that it wasn't working for us. It wasn't working as intended. Um, and so I shut down the app, um, which was really hard. That was really hard, to shut down the app, because I almost felt like I was abandoning them, which is so crazy and silly. It was totally in my head, but I shut down the app. Um, I shut down the podcast. I shut down everything. Um, and I took a step back because I was like, you know, I didn't want to get to a place where I was like resentful of, that audience, because that's not okay. Like I was like, that's just not okay. And so I knew I needed to take a step back. Um, and so I did. And I realized that just because I shut down all of those things, um, just because there's no app, coming out every day. There's no podcast coming out every week. That doesn't mean that I have abandoned them. It just means that they're just not my audience. Um, and of course, that doesn't mean that they can't follow me in other avenues, right? Um, but it won't be me so much so preaching to them, right? Because it was not, the message just was not getting across. And so you really want to take a step back and ask yourself, where is the disconnect? Um, maybe you need to try something else. Maybe the way you are trying to reach the audience is not working. Trying different things, different marketing tactics, um, asking them, you know, if they, respond. Sometimes they don't respond, and that's just life. But you keep going and you keep trying, and you just realize that there's a disconnect somewhere. And it doesn't mean that the audience is not supportive. It just means that somewhere along the line, the message is not getting across as intended. And you just need to redirect. And you might just also have to just pivot, right? And nobody can tell you when to pivot. I think it's just something that but you realize that somewhere along the lines, the audience that you want, um, or where you're trying to go, might not be the place for you, and that's okay. There's something out there for everybody, and so just make sure you take the time to really think about how your message is coming across. And my brain is like blocked because it's so early. Just really make sure that you are taking the time to think about how your message is coming across, and and ask yourself, is it hitting the audience in the way that you want it to reach them? And if it's not them. It's something in your packaging. Okay, it's somewhere in your packaging, and that just might not be your audience, and that's okay. That's all I got for day 2 of 21 days of going live. Um, I was gonna do like some working, but I was like, I really want to talk about how important it is finding your audience and trying different things. This is a different thing. Just trying different things and seeing, what works, and then continuing to do that. And then eventually, you find your audience, you find what they're responding to you and what they want from you, because they will tell you. So